Good morning. Today's Friday, March 14th. We're in the Lesson Quarterly, God's Love and Justice. And today, being Friday, this is the day for further thought. Today we're reading an excerpt from the book Testimonies for the Church, Volume 9. It's called The Reward of Earnest Effort, pages 285 to 288. All that has perplexed us in the providence of God will in the world to come be made plain. The things had to be understood will then find an explanation. The mysteries of grace will unfold before us. Where our finite minds discovered only confusion and broken promises, we shall see the most perfect and beautiful harmony. We shall know that infinite love ordered the experience that seemed most trying. As we realize the tender care of Him who makes all things work together for our good, we shall rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. And that was page 286. Discussion questions. There's 5 of them listed here. Have you been perplexed in trying to understand the providence of God? Yeah, I think everyone has been perplexed at that. How does it come for you to know that all such things will be made plain in the end? Well, I mean, it's kind of like a murder mystery on TV or something. You know, it's like everything's kind of confusing and you don't really get a lot of it. But then at the end, the denouement, the tying of the knot, when everything gets revealed, is like, oh, okay, that's why that was happening. All right, neat. Ponder what Christ gave up in order to become human and to die for this world. He gave up eternity, really. He gave up being a God, being the God, and he became a lesser being. Further reflect on what this tells us about God's love and whether God can be trusted. And what more could He do? Well, I mean, He voluntarily gave up His position and became something lesser, specifically so that we could benefit from it. He got nothing from it. We got everything from it. What is so important about God's name? Well, a name isn't just what you're called. In Bible times, and there are shadows of this today, but in Bible times, your name was vitally important. It was your character. It was your identity. It wasn't just something that someone called you. What implications does this have for those of us who call ourselves Christians? Well, I mean, the second commandment, I think it's the second commandment, says it perfectly. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Don't call yourself a Christian if you're not. Excuse me. Alright, sorry about that. And while I was on the phone, my phone here that I record on fell over, so now that's why the angle might be different. Anyway, okay, so where were we? What is so important about God's name? Well, because it's His character. What implications does this have for those of us who call ourselves Christians? Don't call yourself a Christian if you're not one. If you're not willing to follow God, if you're not willing to do what He says, well, then you're not a Christian. In what ways have Christians sometimes brought disrepute on the name of Christ? And what can we do in our local communities to show people what following Christ looks like in practice? Well, that's not something that can be answered in 1 minute. In what ways have Christians sometimes brought disrepute on the name of Christ? Well, I mean, anytime someone does something that is unethical or immoral and claims to be a Christian, well, that pretty much answers that question right there. What can we do in our local communities to show people what following Christ looks like in practice? Basically try to emulate God, try to emulate Jesus and everything He did. That doesn't mean become a doormat. Jesus was far from a doormat. He was compassionate, though. In the end, even our best answers relative to the problem evil are incomplete for now. What can we do in practice to draw close to those who are suffering and be agents of relieving suffering in this world as we await the final eschatological solution to the problem of evil that only God can bring? Well, I mean, that's kind of the answer to that one's kind of the same as the answer to the previous one. Just show people what Jesus really was. Dwell more on Isaiah 53:4, on the fact that Christ bore our griefs and sorrows. What happened corporately at the cross that helps us understand the plan of salvation and what it cost God to save us. Isaiah 53:4. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Well, what do you guys think? What happened corporately at the cross that helps us understand the plan of salvation and what it costs God to save us? Well, what happened at the cross was that Jesus took our punishment for our sins and gave us his righteousness, his ability to live forever in heaven. That's what happened at the cross. Satan lost. And so, I mean, the great controversy is over. Now we're just doing mop-up work. Anyway, have a nice weekend. See you guys on Sunday.